The Ukrainian crisis has become very, very volatile and very, very slippery. And the Russia is already on the slippery slope over the Ukrainian issue, and the West is also too. The West has made Ukrainian crisis more complicated. The USA already made it complicated by putting Russia under countering America's adversaries through Sanction Act, which is Cuts Act. Through this, the USA already disrupted the Russian economy because the Russia's main dependence is the arms deal with the other nations. Due to the cuts, the other countries are fearing to buy the weapons from them due to the unnecessary ban from the US Parliament to do business freely in a peaceful environment. These are the situations made the Russia desperate to tackle the Ukraine forcefully, to tackle the Ukraine by sending the troops in its border. However, the Ukraine was ready to go into the hands of the NATO. This was the tipping point for the Russia. If the Ukraine goes into the hand of the NATO, then the USA come up with certain possibility of sending troops and the missile system near the Russian border. And this makes the Moscow very, very worried. And the Moscow is just playing the game with the West in the today's hybrid war scenario. They are also fighting the communication war against the West, especially the USA. And now the Russian President Vladimir Putin's arrogant decision makes situation more worse, more fluid, more fragile for the world leaders. The situation has become beyond repair. It cannot be repaired because some of the decision has been taken by the Russian President Vladimir Putin has made this situation very, very volatile. And the last night, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced his decision to recognize the independence of two Russian-backed republics in the east of the Ukraine. One is Donetsk People's Republic and another is Luhansk People's Republic. These two republics already unfurled their official flag and emblem. So this is the pressure tactic from Russia to win the Ukraine without firing the single bullet. And this has made this situation very, very volatile for all the leaders, all the leaders around the world. This will going to put the pressure. This kind of situation will going to put the pressures on the world leaders to come to know that how they will going to resolve this situation amicably. Because the Putin's announcement comes after a meeting of the Presidential Security Council and paves the way for the Russia to openly send the troops and the weapons to the long-running conflict between the Russian-backed rebels and the Ukrainian forces. This is also an end to the Minsk peace agreement, which was signed between the Kremlin and the Kiev to resolve the eastern Ukrainian issue, in which France and the Germany are the two main strong negotiators between these two nations. So the Germany and the France condemned this Russian move along with the USA and the other nations, other Western nations especially. The Biden administration already threatened Russia to remove them from international money transfer system, which is called the SWIFT. After this reckless move from Russian president, the Biden administration got furious and they announced the few more sanctions to the Russian Republic. And the UK, France, Germany are expected to announce its own sanctions today. NATO has also announced this move to threaten the Ukraine sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the Ukraine, because the NATO do not want the Russia to escalate the situation into some kind of situation which will going to break out into an war. If the war broke out, then the world peace will going to be disrupted, because Russia is a very powerful military nations, and USA too. There are so many powerful military nations in the Europe too. France, Germany, UK, they all have the nuclear weapon except the Germany. Germany do not have the nuclear weapon, but the France and the UK have the nuclear weapons. So this will lead to the nuclear war. So the world have to take some decision peacefully without escalating the situation into an war. The President Putin actually announced his decision while speaking in a televised national address. In his address, the Russian president declared the Ukraine as the Russian integral part, which itself very controversial. and unacceptable, because Ukraine is an independent nation. Also announced that the Ukraine as an ancient Russian land which was created by Soviet Russia. And here I would like to quote the Putin's word, and that is, I deemed it necessary to make a decision that should have been made a long time ago, to immediately recognize the independence and sovereignty of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. Russia is also doing the nuclear weapon drill with the Belarus, which is very scary for the world. Russia is also deployed the hypersonic missiles in Kaliningrad. So this kind of situation has made the world peace very fluid, because the Russia is a formidable nuclear power with almost 4,000 nuclear arsenal. Russia has a formidable army, Russia has a navy, and they have plenty of fighter aircrafts, starting from the MiG to the Sukhoi. They are all state of art planes. So the world cannot win over the Russia by neglecting the Russia. So the West have to take some swift decision, because the Russia is again trying to make itself the old Soviet Union. The West have to follow the policy of the carrot and the stick. The United Nations have to take some substantial steps and the decisions. They have to work as a bridge between the Russia and the West to negotiate the peace, between these two massive nuclear power nations. The UN is working like a failed state, just as it was after the World War One. After the World War One, League of Nations was there. That was the ancestor of the United Nations, and that organization was a failure to negotiate the peace at that time, during the time of the Hitler. That is why the Second World War broke out in the 1939. The UN refrained in making any comments on the Ukrainian crisis. They have to make some comments, because of the United Nations numb on the Ukrainian issue, making this situation worse, more fluid, more volatile. The UN is already making the comments on unnecessary issues. Those are already very small matters to handle. Instead of meddling in countries' internal affairs without understanding the country's law and order, United Nations have to work like a guardian to resolve this humongous crisis that may lead to the war, that may lead to the nuclear war. The Ukraine issue already cost the oil per barrel $96, which is scary for the world economy in this post-COVID-19 pandemic environment. The USA, UK, France, Germany already facing acute inflationary crisis due to the COVID-19, because the world has gone through the 2 years of lockdown. But after the Ukrainian crisis, the situation has got worsened. The gasoline power cost already hit the Europe. Then their inflation rate is 25 times, because the Russia is the main suppliers of the Europe's energy need, and the Russian pipeline goes through the Ukraine. And the world cannot think of Russia, cannot think without Russia, because the Russia have the huge oil and the gas resources which feeds the world's 10 to 15% power grid. Russia is blaming the Ukraine to steal the Russian gas and the oil, through which they were sending those resources to the Europe. Ukraine is also said to take these situations to the NATO, but the NATO is no longer interested to resolve this matter. The United Nations have to get into it. The West have to bring the United Nations in this matter. The United Nations Security Council has to come up with some kind of resolved situation, some kind of peace agreement to resolve this situation amicably, because the Ukraine also is the bowl of grain for the world. They have the huge wheat resources. Their soils are very fertile for growing the wheat. So the world have to think very substantial way. Therefore, the UN and the West have to take some constructive effort to resolve this crisis amicably, and the world have to prevent the Russian troops to enter in the Donbas region in the name of the protecting its citizens. If the Russian troops get into this Donbas region, then the matter is closed. The world have to break the Russian code immediately to resolve this matter diplomatically, as the both side agreed. They have to come up with some agreed solution, because Russia has already gave the West six kind of their demands, but they are beyond acceptable, because this is on par with the Russia. Russia is telling the NATO to remove the troops to the eastern regions of the Europe, from the Lithuania, from Latvia, from Moldova, from Romania. So this is not possible. Then the European Union will come into a crisis, security crisis. Then the Russia will have an upper hand. So Russia have to understand that this kind of demands cannot be resolved unilaterally. So Russia have to take some responsibility, has to come into a diplomatic table to resolve this situation diplomatically. Now the question part. The first question is, Sea of Azov connected to which sea? The first option is Black Sea, second is Caspian Sea, third is Baltic Sea, fourth is North Sea. The second question is, when did the Ukraine declare independence? The first option is 7th March 1984, second option is 11th April 1976, third is 24th August 1991, fourth is 14th November 1975. If anyone have any questions, or anyone have any question regarding the uploaded topic, then he or she can ask me the question through my email address, which is tuhin.pawar.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.